Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
We're good. All right.
We're on the big screen now.
It's real now. It's the real deal.
It's real now, yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 33 of Live at the
Welcome.
Hive. You have Courtney Castle with you here.
We have Matt Stefanich here.
Megan Roach.
Yeah, the dream team. As you'll notice, Dan is not on the live stream today. He's busy moving with his family, I'm sure, enjoying this like 30-degree moving day.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That'd be brutal.
But yeah, so you got the dream team here with you today on this Friday before the long weekend. So for those of you who've already taken off, good call, I guess, on doing that. Enjoy your early long weekend.
Exactly, yeah.
And for those of you tuning in with us, thank you very much for seeing out that Friday before the long weekend, right until 5 o'clock. So we have a lot of good things to chat about today with you.
We do have lots of good things to chat about today.
So big things in the news this week.
Big things in the news, yep. A lot of new things coming out. We're going to be talking about Google, Instagram. We're going to be talking about YouTube launching a new music streaming app. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit about what's working and what we found what was working this week for us.
For sure.
Which one did you want to start off with, Court?
Why don't we dive into what's working and get into contesting?
Yeah, for sure. So this week, contesting is really working. We've been using contests to help drive engagement within our platforms, bring low social media engagement up to a rising number, increase low blog engagement as well, a couple other things. So let's first talk about how contesting can help with the engagement of a social media profile.
Yeah, so contesting is actually a very valuable strategy, and like Matt just kind of went through it, it has a lot of purposes. A lot of people tend to think of kind of fluffier contests being more of like a surprise and delight, kind of a social media specific thing. But while obviously social media is kind of the natural place for contesting, that's not the only thing or the only place that they can help. But yeah, we've used contests across the board to help generate leads, to help increase engagement, to help generate more engagement and blog views and drive website traffic. So really a lot of things that it's really helpful for. So we're just going to kind of run through some scenarios for you guys. If you're kind of wondering, that contesting is valuable, you've seen it used by other people, and you're kind of like, where do I start? Like, what happens? So we'll give you a few scenarios in which we've successfully used contesting in the last few months. So I don't know if you guys want to start us out. Maybe Megan wants to start us.
Yeah. So one great way to use contests is UGC, so user-generated content. We're currently at the tail end of a UGC contest, and it kind of just helps people get involved. So ours right now, you have to, in order to enter, you kind of already have to be a customer. So it's kind of like a re-engagement contest. They post photos of themselves. You can do the parameters. We've done a few before UGC contests, yourself doing something that has to do with the brand, and then post a hashtag along with it. And then at the end of them, usually UGC contests take a little bit longer because they take time to post their photos. They get a little bit reminder, make sure you're posting reminders throughout the month. But a month or a month and a half is generally suggested for UGC contests.
Yeah. And I think one of the really cool things about UGC contests is just the amount of content that you gather from the contest itself. I mean, yes, you're going to have a winner and you're going to be posting pictures throughout the contest, but even after the contest is over, you can always post that UGC onto your site and just drive more engagement with your audience. And it also makes your profile look a little bit more authentic,
Yeah, you automatically have social proof, and you did nothing to get that.
Yeah. And
even throughout the contest, your gentle reminders, use the UGC that people have been giving you, kind of prompting, hey, look, this is what other people are doing. You could do it too. And then it shows real people interacting with your contest.
For sure. Yeah, and UGC is one of my personal favorites just because, like they said, you get this added bonus of collecting content for your calendar. And UGC tends to be one of the top performing types of content on social media anyway. So it's kind of like a, two birds, one stone situation where you can definitely get some longevity out of it as well. But UGCs are very simple to execute as well. We'll get into some contesting platforms that we like to use a little later, but basically for a UGC contest, all that's required is a post. Like, you can have an informational post, maybe you put a bit of spend behind it to boost it, and if you add that reoccurringly to your calendar, it's really just a request for user-generated content. So, for example, in the contest Megan was explaining, that's venues that we work with across Southern Ontario, And so they're they have really great, they're very popular venues. And so we're trying to capitalize on that popularity by having these many people who are going to these venues for dinner, for events, things like that, getting them to post. So yes, while it's not lead generation focused, it's definitely a brand building play.
Absolutely.
And also just, like a retention, just to show off kind of the popularity of the brand itself. So yeah, it's really great for, for that kind of growth, and really helps with the social channel growth too. So that's definitely what that kind of a contest is great for, UGC specifically. But yeah, I don't know if we want to, what other kind of contest do we use, Matt?
Off the top of my head, I mean, quiz format contest is also really, it does really well. I mean, people love to take quizzes. I mean, people have been taking quizzes on like BuzzFeed and other kind of platforms like throughout the years. So
yeah, everyone loves a good quiz.
Yeah, everyone loves a good quiz.
Yeah.
So I think creating a quiz that complements your business, your product, any sort of content that you're putting out there, things that people are really passionate about and knowledgeable at the same time, will also really drive that interaction within your contests.
For sure. Yeah, I think quizzing is kind of one of those like internet standard tools, like a tried and true method. Like I've been doing quizzes since forever. It's not like a new thing, but definitely how you use the quiz. And even extending that to things like polling features and whatnot on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram now as well, is an interesting way to kind of naturally promote your quiz.
Yep.
And the things that I like about people who, specifically leads that are generated through quizzes, which is a typical strategy to use. For example, you see you're getting a lot of growth on your Facebook page, and maybe these people aren't following you, but you're getting a lot of engagements, and it's like how to actually capture those leads. You could have a quiz based on one of your top trending topics from the last couple weeks. And when you capture that person, you know that they're engaged. Like there's someone who is actually willing to take the time to do a quiz based on the subject matter that pertains to your product or your company or whatever. So it's kind of almost a way of qualifying them without having a giant form or doing it in some other kind of, not fun way.
Yep.
So it's really helpful in that sense from a lead generation perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think like one thing too about contests, regardless of what kind of contest it is, make sure it's not gated too much. So the more parameters you put on in order to enter a contest, your entries will drop off.
Yeah.
Because if you have a like and share, that's the easiest thing you can get someone to do, right? But then the moment you're following, like us, post this, share this as well, then it'll definitely drop off because you're asking too much of somebody.
And I think that's probably the most important thing that I would say to people when they're designing a contest, is be very specific, like as specific as possible. Because it's very easy to be like, well, we could use this contest to do these 5 different things, to start, generating use of a branded hashtag, to generate more followers, to generate more engagement, to, generate more shares. Well, like those are 5 very different KPIs, that are under the umbrella of social media growth. So you really have to be very specific, and contests don't necessarily have to be some giant overarching campaign that takes weeks and a lot of hours to create.
Exactly.
They can be little small things, that, for example, with a client, we were doing giveaways for a product, and it was just monthly posts that were posted on Instagram and Facebook, given a little bit of a boosting spend, and people who used a particular hashtag, also UGC focused, would then be rewarded, and a random winner would get a giveaway of a gift card for the company. So very simple format, but it increases the use of the hashtag specifically and the UGC. So we aren't necessarily looking for people. These are already existing customers and users, so it's not like new follower based. It's really about engagement. And you really have to divide and conquer that way. I've seen some people run really great contests, but to Megan's point, the gating of being like, you have to share it, use the hashtag, tag us, and follow us in order to be entered. There are certain circumstances, in certain size, if you are like a very large company with a huge following and things like that, you're talking in numbers games, so it'll probably still be worth it for you submission-wise. But if you only have a following of like 10,000 or less, like probably don't heavily gate things. Make it simple, as little friction as possible.
And I like what you said earlier, Courtney, about just keeping the contest really simple and not making it over like elaborate or anything like that. I mean, if you're a small business and you want to start like maybe a spontaneous contest, even posting your product or a message on your Facebook page and then telling someone to share and comment on it and picking someone through the comments, like that's a great way to also generate engagement on your posts. Absolutely.
Yeah, and live streamers, gamers really do that
Yeah.
really, really well. That's
Yeah.
probably, you're
Yeah.
like, you're like, that's what I've seen it.
Yeah.
One of our past clients in the gaming industry, that was so successful when we would do it. Literally just in the moment, the live streamer, if you're not familiar, basically says, hey, leave a comment. It could be a particular word.
Yeah,
For
keyword.
example, we
Yep.
use a keyword like a branded term or something like that, a hashtag we were trying to promote. Everyone comments on it. It's not only good for the algorithm of that live stream, but also it's good for retention. And how simple is that to do? You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy, very low cost. And the value of that kind of excitement and that activity in your community is really what you're trying to generate.
Exactly.
Like, one of the best examples from an e-commerce space that I ever saw was when I went to a site and it had all these little games that as soon as you visited the site, you got immediate rewards, basically.
That's cool.
So they had like a
That's cool.
popover, and instead of being like join our newsletter or whatever it normally would be, it was a little spin wheel where you instantly won something, and it was like spin the wheel and instantly win right now as a thank you for visiting our site.
Oh, that's
And it was
really
like
cool.
I instantly got 10% off my first purchase or whatever it might be, but it was very very affordable
Yeah.
kind of little bonuses, and it was a gamification that just made me interested right away. And then when I actually went through to the site, there were other numerous things as well, and incentives that were things like, hey, if you join our our VIP list, we'll send you a complimentary product piece or whatever it is right now. So just all these different incentives to bring them coming back.
Yeah, I like that too. Like I've recently on different like web pages and things like that, I've been seeing like that, like you said, that spin wheel in there, and even that really subtle contesting on a page just goes the extra mile. Like, say if you have that spin wheel and you hit 15% off your first order, like I'm gonna strongly consider buying something from your website with that 15%, right?
Definitely,
So
I think that kind of interactivity is a trend, and that's just the way that, as technology becomes, more easy for people who aren't devs and things like that to use, as a content marketer, when I can just drag and drop like a plugin or some embed code and I can have that kind of functionality, I think that's definitely kind of just a trend in general in contesting, is finding they become more, intricate and just more interesting in what we're able to do. Because of what technology allows us to do without having to be a dev, so.
exactly.
But yeah, that's a couple scenarios. Really, we've launched some of these contests to pretty great effect in the last few months. One trivia contest generated over 100 leads in the first 5 days of being launched, and with a fairly moderate spend. We also did a video contest as well. I know I walked you guys through it a couple episodes ago now, back in May. But it was a video contest with just a $50 spend on Facebook, and it generated over 100 minutes in watch time in the first 3 days of the contest.
Yeah.
So it really, like I said, when it comes to contesting, pick your goal. Like, what is it specifically that you want to do here, and which audience as well, I think, is another great question. Is you're not speaking to everyone who might possibly interact with your company ever.
Yeah.
Are these people that are not aware of your company at all? Are they existing customers? Are they past customers you've lost? Are they partners perhaps? Not actually customers, but maybe like business partners or clients, things, I don't know. But there's a lot of different ways to evaluate kind of who the contest is meant for too.
Awesome. There's a few other contests that we haven't really touched upon yet. What about product giveaways? I know product giveaways, a lot of people get hyped up for those, especially if you're giving away something good.
Yeah, because usually they're worth like a good $300, $500 of goods. So why wouldn't you? Sometimes like more people are willing to jump through more hoops when it comes to a larger product giveaway.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say product giveaways are probably more like middle of funnel. When you're looking at the funnel and using contesting to bring people through it. A great time I would use a product giveaway is if you've been doing contesting and some growth hacking to build up, say, your social media channels or your email lead lists, and then you're at this rate where you've got some good growth, and it's like how to leverage that. A product giveaway would be a perfect opportunity. Because it just allows you to kind of capitalize on that lead generation. And people who enter the product giveaway to win your product are obviously interested in your product. So it's, again, another way to kind of naturally qualify people without like asking them survey questions and things like that seem a little more monotonous. So that's what I like it for. I know we did a product giveaway back in May, And depending on what like your cost per lead is, that is something you should definitely know before you start contesting. How much can you afford to actually bring in that lead? But for one of our clients in particular, it ended up being a really great cost per lead, and it was over 100 leads that were generated. And when you think about kind of testing contests in little pilots, as we call them, and then if it does really well, make it a reoccurring contest.
Yeah,
you know,
natural hype, right?
Yeah, and you already know how to do it. You've done it once. You know that it worked and that your audience is interested. So why not make it a monthly contest or something like along those lines? So.
And I guarantee if it's something like really good, people will be asking on your feed, when's the next one coming?
Yeah, when's it coming? When's it starting again? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people ask me, like my friends and stuff, when you see contests or promotions that come out, they're like, it's backed by popular demand. And they're like, is that just like copywriting or is that real? And I'm always just like, no, like literally.
Yeah.
That's part of contesting, is building that expectation with your audience. That's literally part of it, is that's what retention is about.
Exactly.
I as a consumer, I might be able to buy your product, if it's a retail product, at many different places. So why do I keep coming back to you? And it's like, because you're offering me this incentive and I know it's gonna be there. It's not just a one-time contest and they never ran one again. That doesn't really look good on you either.
No,
so
exactly.
Contesting should be used consistently, but that's kind of the intention. And it's really a valuable tool. Like a lot of marketers rely on contesting as a strategy. So I would be hard pressed to find a marketer who wouldn't recommend it, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So building off of Megan's, one of Megan's last comments about social proof, what about referral and review contests?
Well, so like in not necessarily contesting, but especially if you are marketing a product, having reviews on your page or posting reviews on your social page works really well because like it is social proof, right? I can't totally speak to a referral contest. I haven't been fully in one.
I mean, I think they're more like they're definitely popular for like local restaurants and things like that. I believe so.
Yeah, it comes like referrals are a lot really popular in subscription-based things, like subscription-based products. I find referrals are very popular.
Yeah, and one thing that's good about referrals is just a lot of people when they come to when I ask them or when we ask them when we start with a client, what is your strongest marketing channel? It's typically either word of mouth or referrals. 9 times out of 10, those are the strongest marketing channels and where you get the highest conversions from. And that is the intent of a referral or a review campaign, that when you are doing that if all these great people are, saying these great things about you, like you want to double down on the channels that are working for you. So a full referral program, could be something that you could set up, but you can also do like referral contests. And that's it's fairly simple. They're typically evergreen kind of programs that you set up. You've probably received an email before where at the bottom it asks you to like refer a friend, or if you share it, you'll get some sort of incentive, different things like that. But that's just tapping into your already existing network. So referral contests, also intrinsically kind of linked with loyalty programs as well.
Yeah,
very successful in kind of, if you have happy customers out there, and word of mouth works for you, then double down on that. And we've seen people with upwards of 60 Google reviews and Facebook reviews and things like that. And not only from like a social proof perspective, that obviously people see you've been reviewed and that's great, but also from an SEO perspective as well. That's actually very helpful. Specifically Google reviews. We've done Google review campaigns for clients in the past. There's nothing like when you Google someone's business and you have your little Google My Business plate that comes up to the right and it says no reviews, 0 reviews. It's just a bad indicator, especially if you're any sort of digital company or anything like e-commerce. And if it is you only have 3 and they're all bad, but that may just be a misrepresentation, that could be a shot in the foot too. And a question we get asked a lot is, how do you remove a review? And unfortunately, you cannot delete a review. That would kind of
defeat the purpose. Everyone would have 5 stars.
Yeah, everyone would just curate their reviews if that was the case. And so the best way to get rid of a bad review is to encourage more good reviews. So it can be a proactive thing, which I would recommend in an ideal world. Try to kind of proactively set up an evergreen sort of campaign, whether, like we said, it's an email link, or whether it's just your natural process with a new client. As you, perhaps when you reach like a certain milestone with them, like 3 months with them or something, you ask them to provide you with a review. So you can even just kind of build it into your natural like client relations process or your customer process, perhaps when someone makes a purchase from your online store, you can have that, be the referral request, and perhaps it's a bonus or something that they get. But yeah, a lot of creativity in the kind of referral loyalty space. And with some tools, even Smile.io is a local company that really specializes in this kind of stuff. And yeah, you can get really creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do you guys want to run through maybe one scenario before we talk about what's new? Yeah?
Yeah. I think we can just, we covered most of our types here that we were talking about. But yeah, I think the only other thing is just basically when we're talking about e-commerce, I just wanted to, a lot of contests are focused on engagement and things like that. But contesting can actually be used successfully for sales too. And that's something that we've been doing heavily over the last few months, is just when you do all this great lead generation, all your contests are bringing in all these great new leads, all your activities and whatnot are building up your lists. You then need to actually convert these leads into some sort of sales and into some sort of bottom dollar value for you. And that's when flash sales and kind of timely contests like that come into handy. Because you can also have like flash contests that are tied into sales, or they can be kind of giveaways that are based on trending topics. But they're typically shorter in time frame because you're trying to force an action by using scarcity. So for example, maybe you launch a buy one, get one free campaign, but it's only for the long weekend. I probably wouldn't advise that, depending on what your product is, unless your product is like a pool floaty or something like that.
Sunscreen.
Yeah, probably don't advise it for this weekend. But typically in that kind of like a 72-hour time frame, because you want scarcity to encourage them to take an action, and just timeliness, so that you can do it reoccurringly. And that's just kind of an example of how once you have all these lead lists, like what else could contesting do to help them down that funnel a little further?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool.
All right, so let's go on to the next segment with what's new. So I think, let me just push and pull.
What's happening in the world of digital marketing this week?
There you go.
All right, first up, Google rebrands its ad lineup with AdWords and becomes Google Ads.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty hilarious clickbait articles about this news this week, just because Google is, some articles that are like, Google gets rid of AdWords, AdWords is gone, and it's like, not the product, it's just being rebranded. The product is still there, it is just simply being rebranded. So Google AdWords, yes, does not exist anymore, but Google Ads is what it will now be called. So don't believe those clickbait articles are hilarious. I'm sure they're getting clicks on it, but to be clear, that is the announcement that Google made this week, as they will be rebranding. Yeah, you can see. I'm not sure what, I want to see the debrief on the logo rebrand.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure about the logo rebrand and why that was necessary, but
I actually like it. I like the little marble that kind of falls down.
I do not like it.
I dig it.
Nice, but
I dig it.
I do not like it. I was just curious as for why, but.
Exactly.
Sure, but the main difference that they're doing with Google Ads at the bottom line of it is what is actually changing, and it's really about the machine learning. So I've seen some other articles too, obviously Google doing their content marketing extremely well. I've seen some other articles come out about benchmark advertising stats and how they can be increased and doubled with machine learning and things like that. And then all of a sudden Google announces that Google Ads will now have this whole machine learning aspect to it. So if you are a small business with a smaller ad account, you will actually be set to a default mode in which it will be like the machine learning default mode in Google, which as marketers who know how to use AdWords in depth, it would be interesting on how helpful it's going to be. I assume that it's to help the kind of all-in-one marketer or the entrepreneur who doesn't know AdWords inside and out. It kind of there to help them guide their strategy and things like that. As you look at kind of what levers to pull while you're in the platform. So really curious to see kind of how that affects us and how that affects rates overall. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. They've also kind of coupled it with their Google Analytics upgrade too. They've kind of enhanced some of their dashboard analytics last week.
And 360. 360 last week.
Yes, Google Analytics 360. So there was some interesting, kind of more, they call it their advanced analytics platform, or their advanced analysis is the new kind of suite of tools that they've added to 360. So that's kind of the other side to Google's update, is now they're just trying to help you take it a step further, because the granularity you need to see things when you're doing things like traffic analysis and SEO. So Yeah,
Exciting.
we'll see how we can make use of those tools and see what's what. But that was pretty big news this week across
Absolutely.
the board.
Then we have Instagram Lite.
Yes, Instagram Lite.
This is interesting to read about, just because it's a market that Facebook only got into a couple years ago, and I think what else? Facebook got into it as well as Messenger just did in the past year. But what it is, Instagram Lite is just a smaller version of Instagram that's made for phones that aren't necessarily brand new, don't have a lot of space on them either. For basically, it's being released in countries like developing countries right now, so that people can access Instagram. They just I think they have all of the features except for direct messaging, and they can't upload videos.
Yeah, it's 155th the size of Instagram.
Yeah, which is
That's insane.
huge.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
small. But
Some dev requires a round of applause for that. I'm sure not just one. Some
It's a lot of compression.
some like 200 dev person team did that.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing for me about Instagram Lite is that a lot of articles like the TechCrunch one we're showing you now was saying that they had a light launch and it was a very quiet launch and things like that, which to me was, because they're launching the product into like developing countries and things like that, was not abnormal. It was like, well, of course the marketing and whatnot and the brand awareness would not be focused here in North America. But yeah, apparently Instagram has said that they're using Mexico currently as kind of a pilot program for it. And Facebook Facebook owns Instagram, and Facebook as a larger tool, it's kind of what they're trying to do is just how, when you get to 1 billion users like a
How
month.
do you condense it? Yeah.
Well, how do you even grow anymore?
how do you grow?
Right?
Where are those people, right?
Exactly.
You have to find your new users at that
Exactly.
point.
So yeah, there was kind of another story that kind of slipped under the radar in light of like Instagram Lite, was that Facebook had a plane that they were using, a solar powered plane that was trying to provide Wi-Fi to developing countries that didn't have the internet. So they did announce kind of quietly that they grounded that plane this past week, but
Yeah,
that
I feel
they
weird about that.
yeah, but they're still, they basically decided that that's not the whole aerospace thing was not really their game, so they partnered with other companies who are in that field to help them. So they're still going for that goal of trying to bring internet to developing countries. But they're kind of doing it under this mask of like, why? And it's just because they can get more users, because that's where their untapped user market is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting just because it brings up a lot of questions about doing something so large for the intent of like building a user base.
Yep.
But
near the end of the article, they were even talking about how it's starting to become a trend to create like a light version of your apps.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Uber recently did it as well, but
Yep.
I'm surprised there's no Snapchat version either at this point. They
Yeah.
haven't released a Snapchat one. I haven't seen anything either. But realistically though, Instagram stories are kind of taking over Snapchat stories. It's
for
become
sure,
way more
yeah.
popular at that point. Snapchat's more private, personal, whereas Instagram is for brands, is for marketing. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if Snapchat would try to tap into that market at all.
Yeah, a couple. I think like a month ago, I downloaded the Messenger Lite app, and it was actually surprisingly. I was on Android, so I didn't get like the chat bubbles like pop up or anything like that. But it worked like awesome. I didn't have any problems with it. It was quick, uploaded. Didn't use as much data like on my data plan. I was trying to conserve a bit, so it was pretty clutch. I liked it.
really, I think it's just like as the app market gets more and more competitive, and as there are now like hundreds and thousands of apps out there, that they just want the app to be as not as intrusive as possible.
Yep.
Probably someone has done some studies, and that like one of the number one reasons people remove an app is because of storage space. I would hazard a guess that exists out there somewhere, and that's probably what kind of spurred this whole Lite app, development. Is like, hey, let's just be, it takes nothing to run us. Don't delete us from your phone. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see where they go with that. But yeah, it's definitely something to watch. Facebook making global moves.
Yeah.
For sure. Next on the plate, YouTube Music. Here
Yes,
we go.
YouTube Music.
I'm actually excited for this.
I think it's cool, but also I'm
Yeah.
surprised they have the exact same prices as Spotify and Apple Music. Nothing's
I know.
really different.
And I mean,
Yeah.
they're so late to the game where people already have these subscriptions and they've already bounced
You're
back.
committed.
Well,
You
I've-
have your playlists. You have you're curated like lists.
Like I've already bounced back from Spotify and Apple Music, I think like 3 times now, and now it's just kind of like, hey, I like where I'm at, I want to be, but at the same time, who hasn't used YouTube for music? I think that's like one of the primary reasons why I use YouTube and have like throughout the years.
Yeah, quite honestly, that is like what I listen to my music on, and so it's like I don't know, I'm kind of torn, you know. I think that, yes, to your point, that it is late for YouTube to do it, and that if they had been able to do this earlier, it would have been better, but better late than never, I guess, you know, if they're going to jump into that market. But yeah, it's very interesting that you can now just, so you guys know, is just called YouTube Music, straight up. They just, we're straight up honest with that branding. And literally, it's just an app that you can download to live stream the music now, $9.99 a month, I think. Is the Canadian pricing
They
for
also
it.
have the family thing for 6 family members, $14.99 a month. That's actually pretty good.
There you go. That's like, we've got Matt on that family deal. But yeah, I just find it interesting. I would want to see like what other, as someone who just like has playlists on YouTube and uses YouTube for music anyway, like what my incentive would be to use this over just using YouTube with an ad blocker. It's, you know, I'll have to wait and see what happens and wait until they give us a little more information about the app. And I'll probably wait until I hear other people. I'm a bit skeptical about apps and things like that. I wait until, you know, the people who really download it on the first day tell me what's what, and then I'll investigate.
And I think, I know for like a few years now, the main demand that users had from YouTube was to play music when you lock your phone screen, right?
When you're not on
That's
the
what
app,
everyone wanted, and this is their solution to that problem.
It's a different app.
Actually, that is a really good point. So that when you close it and you can do other things on your phone while you're listening to music.
Exactly.
That is
the
a
most
really good
annoying
point,
thing about
actually.
YouTube was that it would just close and you couldn't listen to it anymore.
Well, there's my answer right there, guys. Sign me up.
Sign me up.
$9.99 a month.
I wonder too, I'm curious if a lot of this, if it's also an answer to licensing issues that they've had to people uploading certain music on to their platform. I wonder if like this is another response to that.
It'll be interesting to see what content is on it. I mean, I like to go to just regular channels and look at, you know, those mashups that you can kind of get, and I don't think that you'll be able to get that on YouTube Music just because of the copyright, which is pretty obvious. But I mean, we'll just have to see. I'm not bouncing back anytime soon.
He's gonna wait to see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think we're on to our roundtable discussion now.
And that kind of set it up to be a bit of a segue into our roundtable discussion. As I know, we kind of build it as we're talking about these large digital like companies that are giants in the spaces that they come from, moving in like month after month on traditional media. So definitely like not a new thing with YouTube Music. That's just another step in the, you know, in this march towards taking over traditional TV and things like that Netflix started so long ago. But yeah, it's just become really interesting in that, you know, everything from like obviously Instagram TV's launched last week, Facebook has Facebook Watch as well, YouTube has YouTube Red, and now YouTube Music, and then Amazon even has Prime Video. So it's actually crazy in that it's becoming so divided, and what it means kind of for us marketers and from a marketing perspective is it kind of shows a bigger picture of the blend between traditional and digital media. Which is, you know, even in my, you know, 6 or 7 years in the industry, I've seen it go from a clear divide of teams to being so intermingled already. So I think it's just, you know, kind of an indicator of that happening even more so, where, you know, by the time we're marketing 5 years from now, there won't be a difference. You know, there won't be like traditional TV channels and radio and things like that versus online. It's all going to be really, really integrated, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, even like how many TV channels can you just stream? Like you can stream like CTV. Like they have their own app. You can stream their shows onto your computer as well. You don't need a TV. You don't technically need a cable billing service either at that point. So it's very, very intermingled. It's all on the same playing field now.
I mean, even with smart TVs, I know with mine, I don't have cable, so I use it's an app on the TV called Haystack TV. And it's basically a news channel. It sucks up all the YouTube videos from different news organizations, and it kind of puts them into minute-long clips. So in the morning, say if like you want to watch the news with your coffee or something like that, you can just flip it on, and it just goes to 1, 2, 3 across different. And you set it up what you're interested in too, right? So I mean, there's definitely a huge shift, especially for people our age, because it's not like I don't know, like I I'll probably get cable down the road, but right now it's not like
Right
I
now
don't
it's
need
not a
it. You know what I
priority.
mean? Yeah, and I don't need it. So why pay for cable when I can get these services and for like half the cost
For
and
sure.
get the same content that I need?
Yeah, and I think that's like kind of from two perspectives. Like from the content creation perspective is part of why all
Mhm.
these channels and all these companies are doing it, is because obviously if you've following the clash of Facebook and all throughout this year between
Yeah.
Facebook and publishers, just publishing as an industry in general is just really trying to find itself right now and has been for a long time. You've seen that over the years with large newspapers reinventing themselves online and going to a subscription model online and things like that. And now, you know what I mean? It's seeping through everything from newspapers to music industry to TV. Like we said, the traditional kind of very large medias that you would typically turn to are now kind of being absorbed and being forced to design a new model, a new business model entirely, really.
Yep.
And I think it's this subscription model success that some very, famous players like Netflix and even like in the e-commerce space like Dollar Shave Club that have proven to be really great revenue generators. So from a content creation perspective, it's interesting because they're kind of asking people to now pay for content that was free before in
Yep.
some
Yeah.
senses. So, a good example of that was what we were talking about the other week was how Facebook talked about making paid groups.
Yeah.
So
That's an interesting step, I think. I mean,
yeah.
it could be beneficial to, especially if you're in a group with like-minded people on a specific topic. I think it could definitely make sense to you pay to have these great conversations with people around the world. That's kind of cool.
For
But
sure.
I know we've used groups in the past for content marketing as well, and then that kind of puts a block for us we kind of lose a channel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it really. Like I do, but I
weird.
don't at the same time. So we'll see where it goes to. But I mean, these like subscription-based billing and things like that, it's so streamlined for people because it's not like you're committed to anything. Like you're committed, but you're not committed. Like you could just kind of cancel it whenever you want. You can kind of dabble in it and see what it's all about, and then at the end of it, you're just like, okay, it's not for me. Done. You're not committed for like a 1-2 year contract.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and a lot of the times if it's a one-time purchase, you know what I mean, a subscription model is better for that. It's better for revenue generation than opposed to a one-time purchase model. So that's kind of, especially with IoT and things like that, have made that kind of very evident to the business world.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting seeing the reception on the other side. Like as they try to find ways to, as content is created so rapidly, so much more every single day, like how to protect the value of that content and how to still provide valuable content to people so that, something like Facebook groups doesn't die because they're all just spam and low quality and things like that,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to do us a favor, really, and trying to combat things like that. But from the other side, I'm curious about how it will affect advertisers and media planners. Because traditionally, buying like a traditional channel, like a TV ad or a radio spot or something like that, or a full page ad in a national newspaper, for example, would be, very expensive. It'd be a huge chunk of your media budget.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of a huge shift it's really the Wild West right now in terms of how is this all going to shake out and how are advertisers and marketers like ourselves going to respond and like adjust accordingly. If, you know what I mean, are you still going to pay $20,000 for a TV ad when, their audience is cut into the third?
Nobody's watching it, yeah. And you have people that are paying more money. You're paying into these subscriptions to not see these ads on purpose as well. So you can't even get around that.
For sure. It's battling saturation, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we hear it all the time. When I tell people I'm a marketer, they're like, ugh. And it's just like, I get it. And so at the end of the day, I don't want people to be saturated. I want the right people to see my ads and to enjoy them and to have them be successful. So I do wish them the best of luck in this like kind of storm that's happening, and for all the traditional companies that are, it's a true test of creativity,
Absolutely.
and the longevity of the company and the leaders, right? And how are you going to grow with the times and change, right? So,
Yeah, it's
or disrupt, as the kids say.
Yeah, it's definitely about being creative, because you want what you're working on, you want that to be seen by the right people, and then it kind of changes it. So it's like, who are these people? What are they? What kind of media are they consuming, and how do we get into that channel then?
Yeah, and I think it's also transforming like video ads in terms of, we see these like really outrageous and overly done ads where it's like the best example I could think of is like the Old Spice like horse commercial, but it's also like I think Dollar Shave Club has a few really good ones.
Yeah.
And like they're all just, I think there's one video where it's just there's no cuts at all, and it's just like one big shot. And I think
that one.
yeah, and I think it's really starting to transform, because you've never seen an ad like that before, and you're just like, you kind of get sucked into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, it'll force advertisers to think of ads as more of content than ads.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's something as like a traditional content marketer that I advocate for 100%. I've even seen, you know, basically it's like promoted content is just a type of ad. But really, when you're looking at the funnel and you're advertising to people, I've seen a lot more success with a lot of people make the mistake of like asking for the sale right away. You know, doing a search ad on AdWords that's like, buy my product now, you know, when someone's not at that level of the funnel at all, but offering them an article or something like that from your site as an ad piece, as opposed to, you know, a little display ad in the traditional sense. I think that's part of what we'll see in terms of a marketer, and what it means for a marketing team or a small business owner. Is it's really gonna force us to really just rethink the way ads are done at all. And storytelling, always a huge thing, but a lot of conferences that have just happened recently are circling back to storytelling and saying that like we kind of lost the thread a bit, and that people need to get back down to the actual why and being genuine.
Absolutely.
So, cool. All right, everyone.
Well, I think that's it.
Well,
that's what we got this week.
You can tell Dan's not here. It's 45 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
No, Dan, don't worry. We love your ranting. It's good.
Yes.
But all right, cool. Well,
Awesome.
we will let you guys go and enjoy your Friday and your long weekend.
Canada
Have a
Day as
great
well.
long
Yeah.
weekend.
Happy Canada Day and happy July 4th coming soon for anyone watching and any of our
Yes.
American friends.
Yes.
But yeah, all right, everyone.
Take care.